The council chamber floated in the black void of space, a massive ring of metal and glass that had witnessed the rise and fall of 100 civilizations. Today, it would witness judgment against Earth. Dr. Hana Choi stood alone at the center of the circular floor. Above her, arranged in rising tiers like an ancient amphitheater, sat the representatives of 47 alien species, their eyes, some with multiple pupils, some glowing with bioluminescence, all stared down at her with the same expression. Contempt. "The human speaks," announced the Velthrian High Judge, his voice echoing through translation devices. His species had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, and he sounded bored. "Tell us, Dr. Choi, why should we not end your species' reckless expansion?" Hana felt her hands shake, but she kept her voice steady. "Because we have done nothing wrong. We followed every rule. We respected every boundary. You colonized 14 systems in 15 years, interrupted another council member. A creature that looked like floating crystal shards. No species in recorded history has been so aggressive. We had permission for those colonies, Hana replied. We filed the proper requests. We waited for approval, and that is precisely the problem. The Velthrian continued. You grow too fast. You adapt too quickly. You make our elder species uncomfortable. Hana looked around the chamber, searching for any friendly face. She found none. Earth had been part of the galactic community for only 15 years, and already they wanted to cage humanity like dangerous animals. In the viewing gallery far above, hidden behind darkened glass, Admiral Jinho Kang watched the proceedings. He was 53 years old, with gray touching his temples and lines around his eyes from too many years staring at star charts. He had commanded Earth's space forces for a decade, and he had prepared for this day since the moment humanity first made contact with alien life. They're not even pretending to be fair, said Ambassador Minho Lee, standing beside him. Minho was younger, only 40, but his diplomatic career had aged him. His face looked tired. They never were, Jinho replied quietly. The question was never if they would try to stop us. The question was when. On the council floor below, the judgment was reaching its conclusion. The Velthrian High Judge raised one elongated hand, and the chamber fell silent. The Galactic Council has deliberated on the human question for 3 months, he said. We have reviewed your history, your biology, your culture. Our conclusion is unanimous. Humanity represents a developmental hazard to galactic peace. Hana felt her stomach drop. A developmental hazard. That was the term the Council used before they destroyed a species. Therefore, the Velthrian continued, we offer Earth a choice. You may accept our guidance and submit to the following terms. First, you will surrender 80% of your military vessels to Council custody. Second, you will accept genetic modification therapy to reduce your species' aggressive tendencies. Third, you will allow permanent monitoring stations in your home system to ensure compliance. The chamber remained silent. Hana struggled to find words. And if we refuse? She finally asked. Though she already knew the answer. Then we will declare Earth a threat to galactic stability, the Velthrian said simply. Your colonies will be destroyed. Your homeworld will be quarantined, and humanity will be confined to your solar system for the next 1,000 years. Under penalty of orbital bombardment, Hana looked up at the viewing gallery, though she could not see through the darkened glass. She knew Jinho was there. She knew what he would be thinking. How long do we have to decide? She asked. 30 days, the Velthrian replied. We are not unreasonable. We understand this is a significant choice. But understand this, human. If you attempt to flee or resist, we will consider it a declaration of war. And that is a war you cannot win. The council members began to leave, their various forms of transportation humming to life. Flying platforms, gravity bubbles, and teleportation beams carried them away. Within minutes, Hana stood alone in the empty chamber. She made her way to the viewing gallery, where Jinho and Minho waited for her. Captain Yuna Park was there too. A woman in her 30s with sharp eyes and a military bearing that made her look like a coiled spring. She commanded the stealth vessel Silent Dawn, one of Earth's most advanced ships. "Well," Yuna said as Hana entered, "that went exactly as badly as we expected. Worse," Minho said. "They're not even trying to hide that this is about fear. Not justice. They see us as a threat, simply because we exist." "Did you get everything?" Jinho asked Yuna. "Every word," Yuna confirmed. "Recorded and encrypted. The people back home will see exactly what kind of friends we've made out here." Over. Jinho walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Earth was 40 light-years away, invisible among billions of points of light. But he could feel it out there. His homeworld, full of 8 billion people who were about to learn that the galaxy did not welcome them. "They think we'll roll over," he said quietly. "They think we'll accept their terms because we're young and weak. Aren't we?" Hana asked. "Jinho, they have 10,000 warships. We have maybe 500. And that's counting every patrol boat and cargo hauler with a gun mounted on it. This isn't a fight we can win." Jinho turned to face her, and Hana was surprised to see him smiling. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who knew a secret. "You're right," he said. "We can't win a war against the Council. But that's the beautiful thing, Hana. We're not going to fight a war." "Then what are we going to do?" Minho asked. "We're going to do what humans have always done when faced with an enemy we couldn't beat through strength," Jinho replied. "We're going to be clever. We're going to be patient. And we're going to make them regret that they ever threatened Earth." He pulled out a small communication device and pressed a button. After a moment, a man's face appeared on the screen. Colonel Jiho Nam, director of Earth's most classified military projects. He looked excited. "Admiral," Jiho said, "I've been waiting for your call." "Did they take the bait?" "They took it," Jinho confirmed. "They gave us 30 days. That's all we need," Jiho replied. "Project Prometheus is ready. We've been ready for 2 years. Just say the word." "Not yet," Jinho said. "We wait. We let them think we're scared. We let them think they've won. And on day 29, we show them what scared humans are really capable of." He closed the communication and looked at his companions. "Get some rest, all of you. The next month is going to be the most important in human history, and when it's over, the galaxy will never look at Earth the same way again." As they left the viewing gallery, none of them spoke, but they all understood. The Council had made its judgment. Now Earth would make its reply. And it would be a reply the galaxy would never forget. Far below them, the empty council chamber waited in silence, unaware that it had just declared war on the one species that had spent 15 years preparing for exactly this moment. The council thought they knew humans. They thought they understood Earth. They were wrong. 20 days had passed since the council's judgment, and Earth had been silent. No diplomatic messages. No protests. No military movements that the Council's sensors could detect. To the galaxy, it seemed that humanity was in shock, paralyzed by the decision that would reshape their entire future. The Velthrian High Judge reviewed his reports with satisfaction. Human colonies were quiet. Human ships remained in their designated zones. The few human diplomats, still at various council stations, kept to themselves, avoiding eye contact with other species. "They are broken," he told his advisors. "As we knew they would be. In 10 days, they will accept our terms, and this unpleasant business will be finished." He did not know that every human diplomat, every human trader, every human tourist in council space was watching and listening. They did not look threatening because they were not warriors. They were observers, and for 15 years, they had been observing everything. Deep in Earth's solar system, hidden in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, Colonel Jiho Nam stood in a facility that officially did not exist. Around him, 300 scientists and engineers worked at stations that glowed with holographic displays. This was Project Prometheus, and it was Earth's greatest secret. "Show me the network," Jiho said to Dr. Suman Ko, a woman in her late 30s whose genius had made the impossible into reality. Suman touched her control panel, and a massive holographic image filled the center of the room. It showed the galaxy, with thousands of tiny red dots scattered across it. Each dot represented one of Earth's quantum devices, microscopic machines placed over 15 years of careful, patient work. Every major council facility, Suman explained, pointing to clusters of dots. Every shipyard, every communication hub, every military base. And look here. She zoomed in on a section of space near the Velthrian homeworld. Even the council members' personal vessels. We've mapped their entire infrastructure. How many total? Jiho asked. 87,412 devices. Suman replied. Each one is smaller than a grain of sand. Each one is currently in a quantum superposition state, invisible to any scanner in the galaxy, and each one can activate on command. Jiho smiled. It had taken Earth's best scientists a decade to crack the secret of quantum entanglement communication. Another 5 years to weaponize it. The Council had no idea that while they were teaching humanity about galactic politics and trade, humans had been stealing every bit of technology they could find and improving it. And you're certain they work? Jiho asked. We tested one last year, Suman said. Remember the abandoned Council outpost near the Carina sector? We activated a single device. Time inside the outpost slowed to 1/10,000th normal speed. From the outside, everything inside appeared frozen. We monitored it for 6 months before deactivating it. The effect was perfect. But these won't deactivate, Jiho said. Once we trigger them, they're permanent. 99% permanent, Suman corrected. They'll last approximately 50 years before the quantum field degrades. But yes, for all practical purposes, permanent. Across the solar system, on the far side of Earth's moon, Commander Taeyang Shin trained his teams in a facility buried deep underground. His soldiers wore black armor that bent light around them, making them nearly invisible. They called themselves the Ghosts, and for 15 years, they had been Earth's invisible hand in Council space. Remember, Taeyang told his assembled troops, we are not soldiers. We are delivery people. For 15 years, we have delivered packages. We have placed our gifts in every corner of the Council's territory. And in 10 days, those gifts will open. One of his soldiers raised a hand. It was Lieutenant Unbi Song, one of his best infiltrators. Sir, do you think they suspect anything? They suspect everything and nothing, Taeyang replied. They suspect humanity is dangerous. They suspect we might try something desperate. But they do not suspect the truth. They cannot imagine that we have spent 15 years preparing for this exact moment. They cannot imagine that we planned for this before we even joined their council. He was right. When humanity had first made contact with alien life, Earth's leaders had studied history. They had learned what happened to indigenous people when they met more advanced civilizations. They had learned that good intentions meant nothing when facing overwhelming power. So they had smiled and bowed and acted grateful while secretly preparing for the day when the Council would show its true face. On Earth itself, in the Global Defense Command Center in Geneva, Admiral Jinho Kang stood before a wall of screens showing every human military asset in known space. Chairman Wu Jinhan stood beside him, a thin man in his 60s who had led Earth's government for the past 8 years. The Council thinks our fleet is weak, Wu Jin said. They counted our ships and laughed. Let them laugh, Jinho replied. They counted hulls and weapons. They didn't count what matters. And what matters? Positioning, Jinho said. He touched a control, and the display changed. The human ships, scattered across multiple systems, suddenly lit up with connecting lines. They formed a network, a web that stretched across light years. Every ship we have is exactly where it needs to be. When we activate Prometheus, these ships won't need to fight. They'll just need to be present, to show the Council that we control the space around their frozen forces. And if they attack us before we can activate? Wu Jin asked. They won't, Jinho said with confidence. Because we're going to give them exactly what they expect. We're going to look scared and confused for 9 more days, And then, on day 29, we're going to send them a message. What message? Just one word, Jinho said. We're going to tell them no. Woojin laughed, but it was a nervous sound. They'll send their fleet. Yes, Jinho agreed. They'll send everything they have. 10,000 warships. Just as Hana predicted. They'll come to crush us. To show the galaxy what happens to species who refuse council wisdom. And that's when we spring the trap. Back on Apex Prime, the neutral station where the council had passed their judgment, Dr. Hana Choi sat in her small quarters and reviewed files on her tablet. She was supposed to be preparing Earth's formal response to the council's demands. Instead, she was reading reports from Yuna Park's ship. Yuna and the Silent Dawn had spent the past 3 weeks mapping the council fleet's staging areas. The council was gathering their forces at 3 primary locations, preparing for the possibility that Earth might need to be taught a lesson. They were being obvious about it, wanting humanity to see and be intimidated. What they didn't see were the quantum devices that had been placed in those staging areas years ago, during routine trade visits and diplomatic missions. Humans had walked through those bases, shaken hands with their crews, and left tiny gifts behind that would change everything. Hana's door chimed. She opened it to find Ambassador Minho Lee, looking exhausted. They're getting impatient, Minho said, stepping inside. The Velthrian judge sent me a personal message. He says Earth's silence is concerning them. He wants to know if we've made a decision. What did you tell him? Hana asked. I told him we were still discussing it, Minho replied. I told him that humanity was divided, that some wanted to accept and others wanted to refuse. I played the part of the worried diplomat. And he believed you? Of course he believed me, Minho said. Because it's partially true. There are humans who think we should accept the council's terms, good people who think surrender is better than extinction. They don't know about Prometheus. They don't know what we've been planning. Hana felt a weight in her chest. After we do this, everything changes. The council will fear us. Maybe hate us. They already fear us, Minho said. That's why we're here. And as for hate, let them hate us. Better to be hated and free than loved and enslaved. The days continued to pass. The council grew more confident. Their news networks began running stories about the upcoming human submission. Some council members gave interviews about how they would guide humanity toward a better, less aggressive future. They spoke with the certainty of teachers about to correct a troublesome student. On day 28, Chairman Wu Jinhan held a secret video conference with every human leader on Earth and in the colonies. Prime ministers, presidents, governors, military commanders, all of them knew what was coming. Tomorrow, Wu Jin said, we tell them no. And then we show them why that was always going to be our answer. I want everyone to understand what this means. We are not destroying the council. We are not killing anyone. But we are taking away their power to threaten us. After tomorrow, the galaxy will be different. Earth will be different. Are we agreed? Every leader gave their consent. Some looked scared. Some looked determined. All of them understood that humanity had reached a point of no return. Day 29 arrived. Admiral Jinho Kang sat in his command chair, surrounded by his fleet officers. Dr. Sumin Ko stood ready at her control station in the Prometheus facility. Commander Taeyang Shin and his ghosts waited in their ships, scattered across council space. Every human in the military held their breath. Send the message, Jinho ordered. A single-word transmission went out to the Galactic Council, broadcast on every frequency, impossible to ignore. No. For a moment, the galaxy was silent. Then, as Jinho had predicted, the council fleet began to move. The council's armada was magnificent. 10,000 warships from 47 different species, each one a masterpiece of alien engineering. Ships that could crack planets, vessels that bent space itself, weapons that could burn away atmospheres or freeze entire moons. They moved as one massive force toward Earth's solar system, and their intent was clear. Humanity would submit, or humanity would burn. On the bridge of his flagship, the Velthrian High Judge watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. Around him, His command staff coordinated the vast fleet with practiced efficiency. They had done this before, to 3 other species who had proven too troublesome for the Council's taste. "Estimated time to Earth?" he asked. 6 hours until we reach the outer edge of their system, his tactical officer replied. "We will give them one final chance to surrender before we begin operations." The judge nodded. He felt no pleasure in this, but he felt no guilt either. The Council maintained order in the galaxy. Sometimes that required hard decisions. Humanity would understand eventually, after their aggressive tendencies had been modified out of them. He did not notice the tiny red lights that began blinking on his tactical display, so small they were almost invisible among the thousands of indicators showing fleet positions and status reports. At Earth's Global Defense Command, Admiral Jinho Kang watched the Council fleet approach. His officers looked nervous, but he remained calm. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. "They're at the marker point," said his tactical officer. "The fleet has crossed into the Kuiper Belt. Are all devices confirmed active?" Jinho asked. "All 87,412 devices are online and synchronized." "Confirmed." Dr. Suman Ko, her voice coming through the communication system from the Prometheus facility. "We're ready to execute on your command." Jinho took a deep breath. For 15 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. 15 years of careful planning, of patience, of appearing weak, while growing strong. Now it was time. "Activate Protocol Kronos," he ordered. In the Prometheus facility, Suman pressed a single button. Across the galaxy, 87,000 quantum devices came alive simultaneously. They had been sleeping in superposition states, invisible and undetectable. Now they collapsed into reality and began their function. Time is not absolute. Einstein had proven that centuries ago. Time can bend, stretch, and slow. The quantum devices that humanity had scattered across Council space did not create explosions or radiation. They created something far more insidious. Localized fields of extreme time dilation. The effect was immediate. On board the Velthrian judge's flagship, alarms began screaming. His tactical officer stared at his display in confusion. "Sir, I'm reading massive quantum fluctuations throughout the fleet. Every ship is showing." He never finished the sentence. The time dilation field activated around the flagship, and from the judge's perspective, everything continued normally. He could see his officer speaking. He could see his crew working at their stations. The ship's engines hummed with power. But outside the field, from the perspective of normal space-time, the entire flagship had frozen. Not stopped completely, but slowed to such a degree that 1 second inside the field equaled 1 year outside. The same thing happened to every Council warship in the Armada. 10,000 vessels, caught mid-approach, became monuments of frozen time. Their crews were alive and conscious, but to the outside universe, they were statues. Admiral Jinho watched his display as the Council fleet simply stopped. The massive armada that had been bearing down on Earth now hung motionless in space, trapped in time fields of humanity's creation. "Confirm effect," he ordered. "All Council vessels in the Armada are locked," his tactical officer reported, his voice shaking with awe. "Time dilation is holding steady at 1 to 365,000 ratio. For every second they experience, a year passes out here." "And the home systems?" "Activating now," Suman replied. "In 47 star systems across the galaxy, more quantum devices came online. Not around civilian populations or cities. Humanity was cruel, but not that cruel. The devices activated around military installations, weapons research facilities, shipyards, and defense satellites. In one moment, without firing a single shot, Earth had neutralized 83% of the Galactic Council's military capacity. Every major warship, every military base, every weapons facility was now trapped in frozen time. The remaining Council members, those not with the fleet or in military service, watched in horror as their entire defensive infrastructure simply stopped responding. Communication attempts received no replies. Remote sensors showed their facilities still existed, still had power. But nothing moved. Nothing changed. On Apex Prime, Ambassador Minho Lee stood in an emergency council session. The chamber that had been so full of confident alien representatives was now in chaos. Species representatives shouted at each other, demanding explanations. Some accused others of betraying the council. None of them understood what had happened. Minho walked to the center of the chamber floor and activated the communication system. His image appeared on every screen throughout the station. "Members of the Galactic Council," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "I'm sure you're all wondering what just happened to your fleets and military installations. Allow me to explain." The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to him. "For 15 years, humanity has been part of your galactic community," Minho continued. "We attended your schools, we traded in your markets, we followed your laws, and while we did all of that, we also prepared for the day when you would show us what you really thought of us." "This is an act of war," shrieked a council member. "You have attacked us." "No," Minho said calmly. "We have not attacked you. Every single member of your military forces is alive and unharmed. They're simply paused, trapped in fields of extreme time dilation. From their perspective, they're still moving normally. But out here, they experience 1 second for every year that passes in normal space." The horror on the alien faces was clear. Some understood immediately what this meant. Others took longer. But soon, the full implications hit them all. "You're insane," the Velthrian representative said, his voice shaking. "You've trapped them in frozen time. That's worse than killing them, is it?" Minho asked. "They're alive. They're conscious. They're not in pain. But yes, they're trapped, and they'll stay trapped until Earth decides to release them." "You cannot do this," another council member shouted. "This is a violation of every law, every treaty, every principle of civilized space." Chairman Wu Jinhan's image appeared beside Minho's. "You mean the same laws and treaties that allowed you to threaten Earth with extinction? The same principles that let you demand we modify our genetics and surrender our freedom? Those principles?" The council chamber erupted again, but Wu Jin continued speaking over them. "We have evidence," he said, and Dr. Hana Choi appeared on another screen, holding a data pad. "Evidence that the council decided to neutralize humanity before we even committed any of the alleged offenses. You feared us because we grew fast, because we adapted quickly, because we reminded you that your own species were once young and aggressive too." Hana activated her data pad, and files began streaming across every screen in the chamber. Internal council communications, strategy documents, plans for Earth's subjugation that dated back 12 years to just 3 years after humanity joined the galactic community. "You were always going to do this to us," Hana said quietly. "We just made sure you wouldn't succeed." On Earth, citizens watched the broadcast with mixed emotions. Some cheered, seeing humanity's enemies defeated. Others looked worried, understanding that Earth had just become the most feared species in the galaxy. Children asked their parents what it all meant, and parents struggled to explain. In the Prometheus facility, Dr. Suman Ko monitored the quantum fields carefully. Every device was functioning perfectly. The time-locked forces would remain trapped for decades, maybe centuries, depending on how long Earth chose to keep them that way. But Suman knew something that only a handful of people knew. She knew that the quantum fields weren't permanent. They would degrade over time. In 50 years, maybe 60 at most, the fields would fail, and all those trapped forces would be released simultaneously. Humanity had bought itself time. The question was whether it would be enough. Back on Apex Prime, the emergency council session continued for hours. Some species threatened retaliation. Minho calmly pointed out that Earth had mapped their civilian infrastructure too, and while humanity had no intention of freezing entire planets, the capability existed. Other species begged for mercy, pleading for the release of their forces. Minho told them that Earth would consider releases on a case-by-case basis, depending on the species' future behavior. A few species, the younger ones who had always resented the Council's dominance, quietly sent messages to Earth, expressing support. They had suffered under the Council's rule and saw humanity's action as liberation. As the day ended, and the galaxy tried to comprehend what had happened, Admiral Jinho Kang stood alone in his office, looking out at the stars. Captain Yuna Park entered, carrying a bottle of Earth's finest whiskey. "We won," she said, pouring 2 glasses. "We survived," Jinho corrected, taking a glass. "Winning comes later. Right now, every species in the galaxy either fears us or wants to use us. We've made ourselves into something we never wanted to be." "A superpower?" Yuna asked. "A threat," Jinho replied. "Just like the Council always feared we'd become. The question is whether we can be a better threat than they were." They drank in silence, 2 humans standing on a world that had just shocked the galaxy into submission. Outside, Earth continued to spin, home to billions of people who were about to discover that safety often came with terrible costs. The Council's fleet remained frozen in space, a warning to anyone who might threaten Earth, and in 47 star systems, military forces experienced seconds, while years passed around them, trapped in humanity's cruel mercy. 3 weeks after Protocol Kronos activated, the Galactic Council looked very different. The Grand Chamber on Apex Prime, once filled with confident representatives from dominant species, now held nervous diplomats who jumped at shadows. The balance of power had shifted in a single day, and everyone knew it. Ambassador Minho Lee no longer stood alone at the center of the chamber. Now he sat in a raised chair that had previously belonged to the Velthrian High Judge. The symbolism was clear. Earth was no longer asking for permission. Earth was setting the rules. "Let's begin," Minho said, his voice calm but firm. "Today we discuss the terms for the release of your military forces." A representative from the Rixian Collective, a species known for their calculating intelligence, raised one of his multiple limbs. "Ambassador Lee, before we discuss terms, we must address the legality of Earth's actions. You have essentially taken hostages. This violates—" "Stop," Minho interrupted. "Let's be very clear about something. Your council was preparing to commit genocide against humanity. You were going to modify our genetics, destroy our colonies, and trap us in our own system for 1,000 years. Don't talk to me about legality when you were planning to erase everything that makes us human." The chamber fell silent. No one could argue with that, because everyone had seen the evidence that Dr. Hana Choi had presented. Internal council documents showed years of planning for Earth's subjugation. Judge Do-hyun Yoon, Earth's senior legal expert, stood up from his seat beside Minho. He was a man in his 50s with sharp eyes and a reputation for never losing an argument. For the past 3 weeks, he had been preparing Earth's case against the Council. "We have compiled a complete record of the Council's actions against Earth," Do-hyun said, activating a holographic display. 12 years of planning to neutralize humanity, 3 other species completely destroyed before us, 47 member species who knew about these plans and did nothing to stop them. Images filled the chamber. Records of the 3 previous species that the Council had eliminated. Their crime? Growing too fast. Being too unpredictable. Making the elder species uncomfortable. The evidence was damning. "So before we discuss terms for release," Do-hyun continued, "let's establish one fact. Earth acted in self-defense. We are not the criminals here." While the council session continued, Specialist Minji Kang worked in a secure facility below Apex Prime. She was a cryptographer and data analyst, and she had spent 3 weeks digging through council databases that Earth had quietly accessed during the chaos. What she found made her sick. "Admiral Kang," she said, using the secure communication line to Earth, "you need to see this." Jinho's face appeared on her screen. "What did you find?" "The 3 species the Council destroyed," Minji said, pulling up files. "I found the real records. Not the official story about them being dangers to galactic peace. The truth. 1. And they weren't dangerous at all," Minji said, her voice shaking with anger. "The first species, the Corvalli, were destroyed because they discovered a new form of faster-than-light travel. The Council saw it as a threat to their monopoly on long-distance trade. The second species, the Netherians, were eliminated because they started forming political alliances with younger species. The Council called it destabilizing. And the third? Jinho asked. The Yulari, Minji said. They were destroyed because they refused to share a medical technology they'd developed. The Council claimed they were being selfish. The real reason? That medical technology would have extended lifespans for everyone, which would have disrupted the Council's population control policies. Jinho closed his eyes. So every species they destroyed was guilty of the same crime. Yes, Minji confirmed. They were guilty of threatening the Council's power. Just like us. The information changed everything. When Judge Do-Yun presented Minji's findings to the Council chamber, the mood shifted from defensive to desperate. The younger species in the Council, those who had always lived under the thumb of the elder powers, looked at their supposed leaders with new eyes. "You're not peacekeepers," said a representative from one of the younger species. "You're tyrants. You've been controlling us all along, destroying anyone who might challenge your authority." The Velthrian representative tried to defend himself, but the chamber erupted in accusations and arguments. The Council was fracturing, and Earth watched it happen. On Earth itself, the public reaction to Prometheus was complicated. News networks ran constant coverage, analyzing every aspect of what humanity had done. Some people celebrated, proud that Earth had stood up to galactic bullies. Others worried about what came next. Dr. Naribek, a psychologist specializing in large-scale social responses, gave interviews trying to help people understand. "We're experiencing collective trauma," she explained. "For 15 years, we thought we were joining a community of enlightened species. Now we've learned that community was preparing to destroy us." That's a lot to process. But Nari had also been working on something else, something she called empathy warfare. If Earth was going to hold power over the Council, it needed to do more than just threaten. It needed to make the galaxy understand humanity's perspective. She produced a documentary using the evidence from Minji's investigation. It showed the 3 destroyed species not as threats, but as victims. It showed their cultures, their families, their hopes before the Council eliminated them. It showed what humanity could have become if Earth had submitted to the Council's demands. The documentary spread across the galaxy, broadcast on every available channel. Species who had supported the Council began to question. Species who had been neutral started to sympathize with Earth. The narrative was changing. Chairman Wu Jinhan met with his advisors in Geneva to discuss Earth's next move. Commander Hyun-Woo Lim, Earth's diplomatic security chief, had been monitoring threats and opportunities across Council space. "We have 4 distinct groups emerging," Hyun-Woo reported. "First, the elder species who supported the action against us. They're still hostile but powerless. Second, the younger species who see us as liberators. They want to ally with Earth. Third, the neutral species who are waiting to see which way the wind blows. And fourth, a small group of elder species who are genuinely horrified by what the Council was planning and want to make amends." "Can we trust the 4th group?" asked Woojin. "Some of them, maybe," Hyun-Woo replied. "But we should verify everything and trust no one completely." "Not yet. What about military threats?" asked Admiral Jinho Kang, participating via video link. "Minimal," Hyun-Woo said. "A few species have forces we didn't freeze, but they're small defense fleets, nothing that could threaten Earth, and they know that if they attack us, we can freeze their civilian infrastructure too. Fear is keeping them in check." "Fear isn't a foundation for peace," Woojin said quietly. "We need something more sustainable." That something came in the form of Earth's formal terms, presented to the Council by Ambassador Minho Lee, 4 weeks after Protocol Kronos activated. "The Galactic Council will reform," Minho announced. "The following changes are not optional. First, all military forces currently in time lock will be released gradually over a 50-year period. The schedule and priority of releases will be determined by each species' cooperation with the reforms." Murmurs of protest rose, but Minho continued. "Second, the Council will adopt a new Rights of Developing Species Charter. guaranteeing that no species can be threatened or modified simply for growing too quickly or being different from established norms. Third, 3 species must surrender their council seats permanently. He named them the Velthrian Imperium, the Rixian Collective, and the Corthian Alliance, the architects of the plan against Earth. Fourth, Earth receives permanent veto power over all Council military actions. We will not allow this body to commit genocide again. And fifth, the Council will establish an independent tribunal to investigate historical actions and provide justice for the species you destroyed. And if we refuse these terms? Asked a council member. Then your forces remain frozen, Minho said simply. Forever. We'll build a new galactic order with the species willing to participate fairly. You can watch from your time-locked prisons. The vote took 3 days. Species debated, formed coalitions, and argued about their futures. In the end, the terms passed with 84% approval. The elder species who had dominated the council for millennia had no choice but to accept. But one representative stood up before the session ended. She was from a species called the Talari, one of the younger races. Ambassador Lee, she said, I want to thank Earth for doing what we could not, for standing up to tyranny. But I also want to ask, what stops you from becoming what they were? You now have the ultimate weapon. What stops you from using it the same way they would have? Minho looked at her for a long moment. It was the question that kept him awake at night. The question that haunted every human leader since Prometheus activated. Honestly, he said, I don't know. We're human. We're imperfect. We might make mistakes. We might become corrupted by power. But we're aware of that danger. We're watching ourselves as carefully as you'll be watching us. And if we do become tyrants, then I hope some other young species will do to us what we did to the Council. Because freedom is worth fighting for. Always. The council chamber fell silent. Some members looked skeptical. Others looked hopeful. But all of them understood that the galaxy had changed forever. And there was no going back. 5 years after the galaxy learned to fear humanity, Admiral Jinho Kang stood on a platform above the planet Velthros, homeworld of the species that had once ruled the council. Below him, in the planetary atmosphere, floated 300 warships that had been frozen in time since Protocol Kronos activated. Today, they would be released. Are you ready? Asked Captain Unipark, standing beside him. She was older now, with gray streaking her hair. 5 years of commanding the Galactic peacekeeping force had aged her, but her eyes still held that same sharp focus. No, Jinho admitted. But it's time. We promised gradual releases, and we need to show the galaxy we keep our promises. Down in the Prometheus facility, now renamed the Temporal Management Center, Dr. Suman Ko prepared to deactivate 300 quantum fields. Her team had spent 5 years studying the fields, learning their limits and weaknesses. She knew what no one else knew. The fields were degrading faster than expected. Beginning deactivation sequence, Suman announced. 300 vessels. Simultaneous release in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The quantum fields collapsed. To the Velthrian crews inside those ships, no time had passed at all. They had been advancing on Earth. Then suddenly they were here, above their homeworld, and 5 years had vanished in what felt like a blink. The confusion was immediate. Communications channels filled with panicked voices. What happened? Where's the rest of the fleet? Why are we home? Jinho opened a broadcast channel to all 300 ships. Velthrian forces. This is Admiral Jinho Kang of Earth. You have been in temporal stasis for 5 years. Stand down your weapons and prepare for debriefing. Your families are waiting for you. It took 6 hours to process all the returned forces. Medical teams checked them for any effects from the time lock. Psychologists helped them understand what had happened. Family members reunited with people who, from their perspective, had left that morning and were now returning to find years had passed. Some of the reunions were joyful. Others were heartbreaking. Marriages had ended. Children had grown. Parents had died. The returned soldiers were ghosts from the past, stepping into a world that had moved on without them. This scene repeated itself across the galaxy as Earth gradually released the frozen forces. The schedule was based on cooperation with the reforms. Species that had embraced the new council system got their forces back sooner. Those who resisted waited longer. Dr. Hana Choi, now the head of the reformed Galactic Council's Ethics Committee, watched these releases with mixed feelings. She had proposed the gradual release schedule, arguing that it would give species time to adjust and accept the new order. But seeing the pain on the faces of people who had lost years of their lives made her wonder if Earth had been too cruel. "You can't think like that," Judge Do-Hyun Yoon told her over lunch at the council station. "Yes, we hurt them. But the alternative was letting them hurt us. Sometimes there are no good choices, only less terrible ones. But we're making the same arguments the old council made," Hana said. "That the ends justify the means. That causing pain to some prevents greater pain for others. When do we stop being the heroes and become the villains?" Do-Hyun had no answer for that. On Earth, society had changed in ways both subtle and profound. The planet was now the center of galactic attention. Human culture spread across the stars as other species, especially the younger ones, tried to understand what made humanity so dangerous and so clever. Earth's universities filled with alien students wanting to learn human strategic thinking. Human philosophers and ethicists became famous across the galaxy for their writings on power and responsibility. And human military tactics were studied obsessively by every species that wanted to ensure they could never be caught off guard the way the Council had been. But not everyone on Earth was happy with humanity's new role. Lieutenant Eun Song, the pilot who had once trained for special operations, now led a protest movement in Seoul. Her group called themselves the Humble Way, and they argued that Earth should give up its temporal weapons and return to being just another member of the galactic community. "We've become what we hated," Eun said during a rally broadcast across Earth. "We hold the galaxy hostage with fear. We claim it's for everyone's good. But that's what every tyrant says. True strength is having power and choosing not to use it." Chairman Woo Jin-han, now in his second term, watched the protests from his office. Commander Hyun-woo Lim stood beside him, holding a report on security threats. "Should we be worried about her?" Hyun-woo asked. "No," Woo-jin said. "Let her speak. Democracy means accepting criticism, even when it hurts. Maybe especially when it hurts. If we silence our critics, we prove them right." But Woo-jin had bigger worries than protests. 3 species that had been hostile to Earth's reforms were forming a quiet alliance. They weren't doing anything overtly threatening, but intelligence suggested they were researching ways to counter quantum time-lock technology. "Can they do it?" Woo-jin asked Commander Tae-yong Shin, who now ran Earth's intelligence services. "Eventually, yes," Tae-yong admitted. "The physics isn't a secret anymore. We used it publicly. Smart scientists in any species can work backward from the effects and figure out the principles. They're maybe 10 years behind us, maybe 15. And when they catch up, then we lose our ace card," Tae-yong said. "Unless we stay ahead of them." Dr. Suman Ko's team is working on next-generation systems. But it's a race we might not win forever. The conversation turned to something even more concerning. Tae-yong pulled up a classified report. "Sir, we have a bigger problem. The quantum fields aren't as stable as we thought. Dr. Suman Ko estimates they'll start failing in 15 to 20 years. Not the gradual degradation we planned for, catastrophic collapse. All the remaining frozen forces would be released simultaneously." Woo-jin felt his stomach drop. "How many forces are still frozen?" "About 7,000 warships," Tae-yong said. "Plus another 15,000 military installations and bases. If they all release at once, chaos," Woo-jin finished. "Species would think we lost control. Some might see it as an opportunity to attack. Others might panic and start conflicts. And we'd have no time to manage the transitions or prepare people for reunion with their lost family members." "Exactly. Does anyone else know?" "Just Dr. Suman Ko's team, me, and now you," Tae-yong said. "And there's one more thing. 3 weeks ago, We detected signals from one of the frozen bases that suggests someone inside has figured out they're in a time lock and is trying to communicate. If that knowledge spreads, the implications were clear. The power that had shocked the galaxy into submission was failing, and Earth had to decide what to do about it. Meanwhile, the younger species that had allied with Earth were forming their own bloc within the Council. Led by the Talori representative who had questioned Minho 5 years ago, they called themselves the New Systems Alliance. They publicly supported Earth but privately worked toward the day when they wouldn't need Earth's protection. They're preparing for a post-Earth galaxy, Ambassador Minho Lee reported during a strategy meeting. They learned from us. They're planning ahead, making themselves strong, so they'll never be victims again. I can't decide if I should be proud or worried. Both, said Captain Unipark, always both. As the 5th anniversary of Protocol Kronos approached, Chairman Wu Jinhan called a secret meeting. In a secure facility deep beneath Geneva, he gathered the original architects of Earth's revenge. Admiral Jinho Kang, Dr. Hana Choi, Ambassador Minho Lee, Colonel Jiho Nam, Dr. Sumin Ko, and Commander Taeyang Shin. We need to talk about the future, Wu Jin said. About what happens when our weapon stops working. Sumin presented her findings. The quantum fields would fail in 15 years, maybe 20 at most. When they did, 70% of the Council's military capacity would suddenly be released back into normal time. We have 3 options, Wu Jin said. 1. We release all the remaining forces now, gradually, before the fields fail. We lose our deterrent, but we control the process. 2. We keep the secret and hope we can maintain peace through diplomacy before the collapse. 3. We tell the galaxy the truth and work together to prepare for the day when the fields fail. Option 3 will make us look weak, Jiho argued. Every enemy we have will start preparing for that day. Option 2 is a lie, Hana countered. And if the fields fail unexpectedly, we'll have chaos. Option 1 gives up our only guarantee of safety. They argued for hours. Admiral Jinho Kang, who had started all of this, finally spoke the thought that haunted him. We shocked them. We traumatized an entire galaxy to protect ourselves. And it worked. We're safe. But Hana asked me a question 5 years ago, and I still don't have an answer. When does the shock wear off, and all that's left is resentment? Did we save humanity? Or did we just delay a war we've now guaranteed we'll have to fight? The room fell silent. No one had an answer. Maybe that's the real curse of power, Minho said quietly. It's not that power corrupts. It's that power forces you to make choices where every option has terrible consequences. The old council made their choice and tried to destroy us. We made our choice and trapped them in time. And now we have to make another choice, knowing that people will suffer no matter what we decide. As the meeting ended with no clear decision, Jinho stood at the window looking out at Earth. Somewhere up there, in the vast darkness of space, were thousands of people frozen in time, trapped by humanity's cruel mercy. And somewhere out there were species plotting revenge, species preparing for freedom, species waiting to see what humanity would do next. The galaxy had called humans dangerous. The galaxy had been right. But what the galaxy didn't understand yet was that humanity's greatest danger wasn't their weapons or their cleverness. It was their capacity to recognize their own monstrousness and struggle with it. Earth had won its revenge. Earth had shocked the galaxy into submission, but as Jinho looked at his reflection in the window, he wondered if the real question wasn't whether humanity could maintain their power, but whether they should. The future was uncertain. The quantum fields were failing. The galaxy was changing. And humanity stood at the center of it all. Powerful and terrified, victorious and haunted, free and imprisoned by their own success. The story of Earth's cruel revenge wasn't over. In many ways, it was just beginning. And whether it would end in a better galaxy or a darker one remained to be seen.